Welcome to the Walpole Film Festival's podcast, One Point Perspective, a podcast that explores the world of digital filmmaking and talks to young aspiring filmmakers in high school, college, and beyond. Now here are the hosts of the show, Mike Allen and James Conley.
All right, welcome back to another One Point Perspective podcast. We're here in the studio in the library with Jack Swanson, class of 2008. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very much. That was a good class to graduate from.
The best class, one might say. And we have a very special guest in studio with us today. We have Nick Piccarelli taking on a large role. Now that he's working at the school, we're very happy and very thankful that he is around a lot. So that's really good. Really good for the podcast. So, Nick, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. When you never leave Walpole, you get to come back. So.
Yeah, I did the same. Yeah, so you leave Walpole, come right back to Walpole. Never goes away. We had Nick, class of 2010. He was episode 1 of the One Point Perspective. He's doing a lot of heavy lifting this year for the festival. We're, again, very thankful to have him.
Definitely. We're excited to have Jack here. He's one of the big fish that we wanted to get back. He's been back a couple times, right, to talk to the class about film school and what to expect after and all that stuff. Really some good advice. He comes in and maybe he'll do that again. But yeah, 2008, Mr. Connolly's year, big year.
Yeah.
That was, just for some perspective, that we had 14 films that year for the film festival, the largest ever, plus 5 short films. Amazing, looking back at it. Yeah. And these were 25-minute films. So it was
There's that story of like when George Lucas was in film school and he had like all those people with him, like Coppola and whatnot. There was always a sense of like, oh, what are they working on in that corner over there? What are they working? And it was like very much. I didn't get that in college. I thought I would, but I definitely got that in that last year of just like everyone's in the same room editing their stuff. You always like look over your shoulder, like, what are they working on? What are they? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You hear a bunch of people laugh, and you're like, "Damn it! Why is that not in mine?"
Yeah.
It was
that year in particular. Yeah. Because I didn't have that other room that year. I think I annexed that other which is my room now. Half of that room, I think the year after you guys left. But yeah, everybody was crammed in there, and I know exactly what you were right there when you walk in on the right. We don't have that was like an extra spot that I had to make. But anyway, so. We always start off, Jack, talking about how, if you remember, how you got involved in the film festival.
My first memory of the film festival is when I was a freshman and I kind of just bought a ticket to it that first night. It was a very like warm May evening and just being absolutely blown away by everything that was up on screen and just like not having the concept of like how are kids a little bit older than me doing that. And getting the impression very quickly, like, I mean, that's cool, but like, no way I could do that. That's some impressive stuff. Then, I don't know what it was, but like after sophomore year, they asked us to fill in some electives and film was just right there. And I guess I just went for it. And through some luck, I ended up being the only junior admitted into that class. All seniors except for me, and I know a few other juniors probably were not all that happy about that.
We were pissed.
But I think honestly, it's like, you know, all of you kind of cancel each other out, and there's only room for one, so how are they going to pick? And I kind of just snuck in there. So I took the film class. I remember early on, again, being the only junior and not having a lot of social capital back then to begin with, feeling very, like, I don't know, kind of withdrawn. I remember the first things we learned was it was a little short film called Good Day and Bad Day, little companion pieces, which is a very cute idea. Feeling very overwhelmed when I actually learned of like what it takes to like get stuff recorded and like all the coverage of just like one person running into the high school, how many different camera setups that was. And I just was like, this is a lot. But then when we started to learn about Final Cut Pro, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. This feels good. And that is where like I kind of stuck. Yeah, later that year, so the second half of the year as we were doing our films, I got put on to Sweet Revenge. I loved that movie a lot. So again, like I started off like very timid, and by the end of it, I was like arguing with everyone on my crew of just like, no, this scene's cut. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. We've got to get rid of this. And they're like, all right. They're like, well, I'm the director, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is not what we want to include. It doesn't make sense. It's not good.
There was only one film class back then. It was a very hard class to get into. And yeah, James and his whole crew, which had been involved in the film festival in an independent the year before, and they all wanted desperately, and they took the summer course, like 2 years, and they desperately wanted to be in there. None of them got in. Jack snuck his way in. It was an epic year, too, because that 5th year
It's a good
was
year.
like
Now that I remember it, it was that envelope full of cash I dropped in the guidance department.
Yeah, that
was the missing piece.
Yeah, that
we
always
didn't have.
tips the scale.
Yeah.
Like in your like that, what you were saying makes perfect sense too. Because I think if one of our crew was in there, it would have been like a completely different dynamic.
Right.
So like it's
probably worked out.
and it probably worked out for the best too. Because then we're like, oh, I'm so angry Swanson got in and we didn't, and then we're like, oh, Sweet Revenge, that was good. So never mind.
Well,
it
so
worked out really well. So
it did, especially for you too. I mean, it was such a good year. It's such a talented group.
Yeah.
And so that Good Day, Bad Day was a practice. It was 2 short films, each about 3 minutes long, that worked together to combine as a companion piece. That was kind of, we do that in various different forms still. If you go back and watch Good Day, I've showed it to the kids, Good Day, Bad Day now, it still holds up.
Yeah.
Like they were so talented, like Julie Marshall, Dan Jenks, who were like the 2 stars, and then, but like everybody, like the Hermans got to, participate. Jeff got to get behind the camera, like for the first time even. And I remember like, Sacchetti and obviously Morrissey and stuff like that. Just everybody kind of working together and figuring it out. And it just came out so well. To go back to what's interesting about like your crew, that the whole Sweet Revenge story is like kind of fascinating story. Because like you happen to come on to like the perfect crew, I think, for you. Because Sacchetti was a director of the first sophomore independent that we ever had. Because before then it was just junior independents, and they were the first sophomores, and they did Camera Obscura. Remember that movie, Camera Obscura, which was really good. And then the next year she did another independent, and it was like a horrific experience for her. And she came in like just determined to like make a good film. And with that script, that's Cam's script.
yeah.
Cam Crown, which is like a infamous pitch that he pitched the year before, which was like a ridiculous pitch, kid getting trapped in a locker for 17 years or whatever it was. And I'm like, yeah, this sounds great.
I loved it because it was also like you could make that movie now. It didn't rely on just like Hollywood movie set in high school.
Right.
And then all the jokes come from that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I
so
think it's
original.
one of the best original premises.
It is. And then also it's just a wonderful like movie just because you get Joe Sweet, who is not a film kid, bringing him in, and you come along and you had this knack for editing and all that stuff, and it just surprised everyone because people were like, oh yeah, Sweet Revenge. They thought it was going to be kind of like a, I don't know, just kind of like a laughing, a couple laughs, silly movie, and it was like so good.
Yeah.
Because that was the surprise of that 5th year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think Sweet Revenge was probably the dark horse of that year. That it was like, again, we're all trying to. This is back when like only 5 movies got shown or 4 movies got shown, and you're like, is there a road for us to make it? And
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's that last spot, like, because there were some wagons that year.
Oh, it was a big
so
year,
good.
so many played so well, too. It was a difficult year.
Yeah, that was the first festival I ever went to. It was Sweet Revenge was one of the movies, and I remember that playing really well. And I remember the audience in general just being like, that stood out to me almost more than the movies themselves, was the audience being like so into every movie.
The audience was
Yeah.
crazy.
It turns out I would have a knack for finding faculty talent. Both years that I did movies,
Yeah.
I won on best faculty performance. And
That's
then,
right.
of
That's
course,
Bacchus.
Yeah.
Bacchus is here.
and then Matt Murphy did a great job as the moral center of that
Yeah.
movie. He was great.
Matt Murphy and Joe Sweet in the same movie.
Matt
Yeah.
Murphy, that's right. Yeah. And then Joe Sweet, just the man child, like that was awesome. Him and
A
Balkus.
commanding on-screen presence.
Like exactly, him and Balkus too. It was just like it was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Gene and stuff like that, and it just that mix, that whole group, that whole 5th year, and Stott and O'Neill, it's just like awesome, just a great class. So it was a great experience that junior year. I think you learned so much, and then you came in senior year, and that was when we had James and all those guys come in, and we had such an just a huge amount of great screenplays that year that I knew it was going to be. My one mistake is, I still regret, is probably greenlighting too many of them. We should have pulled back a couple of them.
Held them, yeah.
You guys just kept churning out the scripts. And so the only way to get them made, so instead of doing Good Day, Bad Day that year, I was like, okay, it was such a big class, huge. I was like, let's just get into Cruise and try to get Dirty Disking and College Bound.
That's right.
And kind of do 2 mini crews, if you will. Like we had like multiple directors. Like, so you were on with College Bound with Nelson, right? And then James, you were Dirty Disking. And so that's what we did and it was more for like, hey, like I know a lot of you guys have made films but I just want to make sure everybody does it the right way. So it was more about that.
Especially with us coming in, because we were now 2 years independent, and then coming in, it was nice to see like what the actual format, like instead of like the running and gunning that we've been doing.
Right.
So
it was mostly for them.
It was it was great though. And the College Bound, I know it's we're probably gonna go through this one quick, but my favorite part about College Bound was Chris Barnes wrote that script and was like, I got this great idea for a movie, and like a month later, Accepted came out.
I know.
I'm like, God, are you kidding me? Or like, this is awesome.
There's been a few of those.
Yeah,
he had that concept before, and yeah, so that ended up by the way being nominated as well.
Picture,
That was great.
So it was good. That was the one that I just told that story, how they had to reshoot the last scene. They shot the whole thing in the snow.
Yeah.
And then no audio. I mean, they were out there for like 2 hours in the snow, and then they had to go back and do the whole thing again. And it worked out. But anyway, we had a ton of screenplays. But Jess Papirio, who took creative writing spring semester of 2007, and this is another good like one that I really like to tell. It's just like out of nowhere, great pitch. She just comes up with like this, the idea of a kid doing like these tasks for Mr. Bacall. Now, at the time, like we really didn't know Mr. Bacall. Like he's now a staple of the film festival, but at the time, like he was kind of an unknown entity, and like I don't even know if she had him or not, but like this idea of like old time, like Odyssey type of episodic movie was such a cool idea, and she wrote just a fantastic screenplay that I knew coming in that was going to be one of the hot ones. And another one of the hot ones was The Mathlete was written that same semester. So those were like the 2 big scripts that of course I brought. I want to say I brought them to like you guys, James and Justin and Eric, over the summer. I was like, I gave them like, read these scripts. They didn't want it.
Oh,
they
passed.
They passed on The Mathlete.
Wow.
And they passed on Latin Labors, but it's because Justin
had
Meatloaf.
Yeah.
That was a Telltale. Meatloaf was also written that 2007 year.
Yeah.
And
I think I just wanted to do
Justin
one.
had Meatloaf. That's
Justin had Meatloaf.
Justin
Take that
read
sentence out.
Justin read Telltale Meatloaf, and that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think James wanted to do one of his movies that he wrote. And so it was just, anyway, it worked out, and you got a hold of it, and you were like, because you knew Mr. Bacall, right?
At that point, I had taken 3 years of Latin, and 2 of those were with him, yeah.
And you rewrote the script like several times to kind of...
Because she didn't know him, right? I think she said that in her speech.
She
like,
didn't
I
know
never
him.
met Bacall, yeah.
Which is amazing. Like she wrote that screenplay, but it needed like that idea, and then it needed to go to someone like Jack who knew Bacall to put in the craziness, because I don't think it had the wackiness that it ended up having. I can't remember. You went through like 3 drafts.
Yeah. I do remember rewriting a lot. Sorry, not a lot of it. Just a lot of punching up dialogue, right? And like 300 to just come out. Like it was a big time in like Hollywood for like these big epics. Like Troy had just come out recently, so like I was very like I can do this, and I added like some Star Wars references and a few of those, and then like that was it.
And then, but it was like a really hard movie to do. I just remember.
Oh, Rome was also a very big show, and I remember we used to like chat about that in class, but Mr. Bacall and I.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a very Latin and myth type of few years, I guess. It was
The market was good for it.
Yeah. All right. So walk us through your memories of making that movie.
I remember absolutely one man banding that, and I feel really bad because there were like a couple other people like on my crew who like didn't have a whole lot to do besides like helping me out, or like I needed them, oh, go fetch this, go fetch that.
I believe at one point you referred to Niccolo as a gopher, I believe.
Yeah. I remember because like part of like there's like the film festival, and then there's film with a class, and part of the class involved like making storyboards, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I got it all up here. Nicola, why don't you do that? And then he like did that. He wrote pages and pages of storyboards, and I never looked at them. Just like, well, it's not what I wanted. So I certainly at that time felt a lot more confident with the camera, and especially because there were like 3 nice cameras, and I got one of them. Is that with the Steadicam? Thank you. But it was still very edit focused. Like I remember like in the thick of it, I was going out and capturing scenes just because I could think of the spot in like the timeline where I needed to fill. And just capturing that and then running back to log it and playing with it. And that's where I had most of my fun there.
I think that's a key to that. Your success is that you're an editor. Mm-hmm. Like that was your thing. And I tell the students that a lot. It's like it kind of all comes down to editing. You have to think like an editor when you're shooting the movie. Right. And my best directors do that. And I know you were very good at that. I remember in particular, like you were fooling around with the fight scene and you had it. You knew how to do it. You were like, you cut frames. I don't know if you remember this, but you actually knew enough to like cut out frames to make it look like jagged, like the 300 look.
Oh yeah, a lot of speed rams too, yeah.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So like you had it all figured out how to do it, and it was I never told you to do that, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's good, that looks good, but you had it all pictured, like you knew exactly where it goes on the timeline and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference, and you were just right, like you said, in the corner just doing your thing, and everybody else was
just doing nothing. Yeah, maybe a homework for like the next class or something. I'm like, I got this. Don't worry, guys.
But you were locked in. You were locked in editing. That's what I'm saying. Like you had it down. Because I was looking at the blogs, which we don't do anymore. And
they're still linked though.
Yeah,
they are still linked.
They're still up on the website.
Oh, good. Yeah, excellent.
And they started. You guys started right when we start now, like right after Christmas break, and you guys were slow to start. I don't know if you remember this, but like Evan had broke his collarbone.
Right. Yeah.
And
there was no recasting him either. He was it.
He was good.
And but then you just picked it up and got just so much. Again, Bacall was like kind of the magic that we didn't know was there. Like he was just so like you came back being like, I think that's what you told me this. You like, well, he had won Best Faculty there, right?
Not yet.
No, but for that movie,
yeah,
right?
for that one, yeah.
Yeah, I think you had predicted he was going to win after like the first shoot.
It feels so like weird to say this, but like that junior year and I think when we talk about like movies that I was involved with that I loved, The Legend of the Sleepy Hallway, his bit, he didn't have a big part, but like that bit where he was going back and forth with Brian Coveney in like Latin class, and I'm like, this guy is good. This is going to be great. And I knew obviously it was going to be him in the next one, but like I knew he was talented.
Yeah. And he's in also Bad Day as well. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but he like laughs at like Jenks as he tries to get into the class or something like that. He was very funny in that too.
And Balgus Sweet Revenge wasn't Balgus' first movie, but it was his first like really big one, right? Like,
yeah. But Bacchus, we knew what we had in Bacchus. We knew he could handle. Like he's just, But Bacall was a surprise. Yeah, I just remember you guys getting off to a slow start, but then when it was all coming together, like you putting under the 300 soundtrack.
That soundtrack was the crutch that kept that movie up and what made it any semblance of successful.
Yeah, and you were the one. He was the one that was scared that we would, because the next year we went to original music, and he was like, I don't know. He was like, I don't know.
Could not have happened.
Yeah, he was like, but we made it work. But I know like a lot of you guys leaned on copyrighted.
The talent of like Hans Zimmer and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely we did.
A lot of Radiohead.
Yeah, a lot of radio.
A lot of Radiohead, a lot of Stones.
Yeah.
The only disagreement we had, I think, during that whole process was we disagreed on the Oracle, on casting the Oracle.
Yeah, I think that was probably just so. I had a few folks from my basketball team on there, and
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm like, I know Cam, like this is going to be Cam's role, and like I don't know if he just didn't. I don't know. Is this from the perspective that it didn't quite work out, or
No, it's just before. It's just
I
before.
see.
I was like, I don't think he's right for that role. He did fine. I mean,
He did
he's
fine. He's
he's
good.
easily one of the best athletes ever to walk these halls.
yes, absolutely,
But I was like, I don't think he's an actor, but he did fine for not being an actor.
right?
I thought that, and I still think that role needed somebody funny, like Rabola. Like you needed somebody like who's instantly gonna get the laugh as soon as you open up that, like where it's like, oh, like Miss Milne.
Yeah.
Miss Milne should have been the Oracle. Like that would have been. We should redo this.
I could see
You're
that. Yeah,
Redux. Kathleen
I
Milne.
had a bit of a
would have
bias.
crushed the Oracle. Like
Yeah.
like that's what we needed there. But like Cam was awesome in it. Like
Yeah.
you know, I like the creative disagreements that we get into and look, I trusted you enough to let you have your way because sometimes I won't do it. I'll be like, nope, so and so is playing this role,
Yeah.
and that's too bad. But I was like, all right, we'll go with it. Plus, like maybe because you were having so many issues with like holdups, and you had Cameron, like you had
Yeah,
him
yeah.
in your back pocket,
Yeah.
that I was like,
yeah,
okay, go.
With basketball too, like being on the same schedule is easy.
Exactly, yeah.
Like having that.
Yeah, I might have just said, okay, go with it. But you guys had so many people in that movie.
It's a big cast. Yeah, we also had that big entrance into the club scene. My oneer.
Yeah,
That was really fun. I had to pull a lot of folks for that one.
yeah, and you had the chorus too.
Yeah, that's Connor Tobin.
Yeah, Connor and
Sonny.
Sonny. Yeah,
Yep.
Nico's brother.
Yep.
Which they played huge.
Oh, they did. Yeah, that was a very important piece of it. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, it was great. And so it was obviously a very successful movie. You guys won. You won screenplay. You won picture, director.
Did not just those.
Was that Justin?
That was
Yeah, it
no,
was-
it was Baked Goods.
That was
right?
Baked Goods.
Baked
yeah.
Goods. That's right.
Yeah.
You forget that. What a stacked year. Jesus.
Yeah, I forgot about like Baked Goods is.
Yeah.
And now we're going back after this for the 4K restoration.
Yes, yeah, we're going the 20-year re-release. Yeah.
Deleted scenes.
But you were also, then you went to film school, which is a really big deal because a kid who did not have this on their radar,
yeah.
all of a sudden gets the bug, and then it's like, I'm going to film school. So talk about that process.
Honestly, I mean that's a great point. I don't know what I would be doing otherwise. I didn't really have any. Of course, like at that age, like who really does? But that just it worked, and I remember telling my parents, I think this is what I want to do, and they were like, okay, cool, let's do it. So I looked around to a few places. I think it was at the end of it, it came down to BU and Hofstra University, which I selected mainly because proximity to New York City I thought was very cool. And then they just gave me a really sweetheart deal on a scholarship. And also their what they allowed for AP credits was very generous. I ended up actually graduating in 7 semesters because of that. And I don't know if like AP classes are pitched as like a cost savings opportunity, but like holy hell, I saved a lot of money because of that. And I probably owe Mr. O'Malley a steak dinner there for chemistry.
There's probably double the amount of AP classes since you left. It's actually
Film is, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a problem with getting into film class now. So it's a point of contention. But now, so for advanced film, for the students in advanced film, they're starting this year, they get college credit.
Which makes a lot of sense because like those intro to film classes that I would take, I was just like I know it.
Yeah.
It was so easy and like I've already done this stuff. Like I could probably skip on to the next.
Yeah, so
level
that's
here.
one of the reasons why, because a lot of graduates came back and said that, and then James did a lot of work into this, and so it counts as communications credit. So even if you don't go on the film, it's such a valuable thing. So all our kids that are in advanced film, as long as they get above a certain grade and make the movie, that they get the credits.
And I mean, like, I'm not just saying it was like the cheap option. Like Hofstra, like I knew that they had a very good, communications bit. Like a lot of people, it's actually most known for like broadcast work versus film, but like it's very strong. And a lot of the professors were like former, TV screenwriters or just working in broadcast. Like they were great. But I think just to the larger point of like, is film school like worth it? Yes, because any sort of bachelor degree is going to be worth it. And it's just very tough because this is like a cool, artsy thing to major in that, instantly there's the whole like, well, what's the return on investment of it? Like, do you really going to get jobs coming out of that? It's tough. And I think there's, it's just kind of mean how we'll raise kids to be like, follow your dreams, do whatever you want. But then if you major in something like film or arts or whatever, and then they don't get a job out of that, well, that was stupid of you. Which sucks because like people major in all sorts of things and then don't work in that later on. And that's perfectly fine. But I mean, this was just a degree to get, and then you get a job afterwards from that. So like check that box. Like that's all set. Is a film degree gonna get you like an instant in the business? Not really. I could say like it doesn't matter where you go to school to get your degree. That kind of works for you and against you. Like if you're just like hotshot at Emerson, it may not result in a whole lot. But if you're just going to any sort of school that has a film program and then you want an internship in it, you have just as much opportunity from that.
Yeah, it's always a debate, as you probably know, listening to the podcast, whether or not film school's worth it. And you were one of the first to, I think you might be the first from us to go to Hofstra, which has become like a Walpole next step.
Yeah,
So
they can thank me anytime.
Yeah, they a lot of our kids have gone to Hofstra. But you went in, you were the earliest, and I remember distinctly you writing an email to me talking about classes, and you were editing on film, your first.
On a Steenbeck.
Yeah. So cutting with razors and taping it together, and you were talking about that, which I think, retrospectively is kind of cool that you went through that, but I just distinctly remember writing back to you, be like, are you driving to your classes in a horse and buggy too?
That's exactly it. And I think they made first of all, they made the point of like, well, it's called film class. Obviously, we're going to be working on film. And of course, back then, like it was still very much like digital filmmaking, like wasn't the standard that it is now. So we worked on little Bolexes that we had to wind up, and we got about 30 seconds of a shot, and then we would cut it on this. We would send it away first, and then get it back, and we'd unspool it and cut it. And they made the point of like, oh, well, when you're working on it with so tactile, you really have to think about each cut. It's like, yeah, I get that, but when I learned to drive, I didn't start on a Model T, so I learned to appreciate, anti-lock braking and all that good stuff. So I disagreed with that at the time because it just felt more of like a novelty. And here I am, like each class, like per credit is thousands of dollars, that like this seems more of just like a fun museum piece or like this is how they did it back in the day thing that maybe we could kind of skip past. I didn't become an editor, I guess, is the top line. But like, I don't necessarily agree that like, I don't know, when you have non-linear editing like that, it's non-destructive. You have more freedom to play around with things. You don't have to worry about actually like cutting and pasting, or do I have enough spools of this to like, try. So I didn't necessarily like that part. And then the second part I didn't necessarily like was walking into like my intermediate class and like the first question being like, what movie do you want to make? What story do you want to tell? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And they're like, well, why are you doing this? I'm like, well, I want to work on a film set, and not every one of those people are there because they're telling their story. They're just working on a set.
Yeah.
And so that, like, again, I didn't write Sweet Revenge. I didn't write The Latin Labors. Like, I still can't, like, just come up with an idea myself and, like, have this story that I want to tell. So that course, that program was kind of meant, and I took the BA instead of the BS, that was geared toward being a storyteller. And I just didn't have that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we always tell students, like, they always want to be a director, and it's like, our advice is always like, you should think about like what do you want to do on set, not a director, like, whether it's sound or lights or cinematography or editing or whatever. That's probably a better way to go. Yeah, and you just happened to go to film school at the beginning of that transition, which really took off after you, it probably took off in 2009, so a couple of years after you graduated with the DSLR, and then all of a sudden everybody's shooting on these cameras. And I really think that those film schools took a long time to catch up because they had these professors that sort of just taught the way they taught using film and weren't going to move and weren't going to update their courses, et cetera, at the detriment to the students. So I think that took a long time to catch up.
I guess my top line for like advice on film programs, like major in it, don't major in it. That doesn't lock you out of anything either. They're not a film degree or film program isn't as academically challenging as you probably are dealing with classes right now. So like they're just a lot of them are practical classes that if you just turn in your work on time, you'll do very well. And then in the theory classes, it's just like extended English classes with a visual component to it. I would just say do your best to graduate with the least amount of student loans as possible, and you'll be fine.
We'll be right back after a word from one of our sponsors.
Hi, I'm John McCluskey, award-winning film festival star and widely known as the best teacher of all time. There's a new class in Walpole High School that's got me very excited. You may have heard of it. It's AP Lunch. Learn how to stomach concoctions that are made for us every day with a smile and without gastrointestinal distress. AP Lunch, coming soon, fall 2026.
And I used to use you as an example for years, about what a good director is, and I used to say, like, look, you have to have a vision, and you certainly had a vision, and you can't settle. And
I remember this.
Yeah, and as like sometimes I go, you don't have to be a jerk.
I think you called him a tyrant.
Yeah, you don't have to be a jerk. I go, but you have to like lay down the law and don't settle, and keep people in line. And like you had that great personality. You didn't care if you came across as a jerk or not. Like you could command a set and get the work done. And sometimes that's what you need to do. And I think I knew that you would either be an editor, because I knew you really liked that, or like a producer.
Yeah.
And that's the route that you took, because that's what a producer does. Basically, director/producer, they just, you have to produce. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing. And that's why, like, sometimes I go on set and I'm like, no, that's not good enough. You got to do it this way. And the kids are like, get all, he's yelling at me and all that stuff. It's like, well, no, you just need to get it done the right way, and you're not getting it done the right way.
There's like two mantras that I have of being a good producer, and one of them came from here, and it was you talking to Jeff Walker at one point, and he was complaining about something, a continuity error, blah, blah, I can't do it. And you were just like, just get it done. Just figure it out. And that was the end of it. You didn't have any further advice beyond that. It's just get it done, and it can be like that simple sometimes.
Yeah. So talk about, your route from film school to what you do now.
When I graduated, I was a little listless because I kind of just thought I would graduate and it would just happen, and it didn't.
That first year is tough.
Yeah. So I came back. I was working at a restaurant for a while, and I would apply to like a bunch of jobs, and I didn't really have didn't have a whole lot to like offer. I wasn't also like doing a whole lot. So in my defense slightly, the Adobe suite had not been as easy to access as it is now. And I felt scared about pirating software. So I didn't have the tools that I thought I wanted to. So I wasn't doing a whole lot myself to advance it. I was kind of just being like, well, I won Best Picture at my high school film festival. Have you guys heard of this thing? It's a pretty big deal. And so the job offers weren't rolling in. So I applied to a bunch of places, didn't get it. I applied next to just a set of internships, which forgot to do in college. I took an internship, but it was different. It was at Gillette Stadium, which I had worked there before, so it was easy to get an internship. But I applied to an internship that was a post-grad one, so I was allowed to do it even though I was a student. And that was at a company called Brickyard VFX. And I didn't know what that meant at all. Visual effects is just not something that comes up at this level, or even really the college level. But it was fantastic learning what they do. That was a place that their 90% of their software was called Flame, which is like the top line compositing software that one can access. And then they had a small CG department that works mainly in Maya. And their bread and butter was commercials. They worked with a lot of ad agencies in Boston. They had a place out in LA as well to work with those ad agencies as well. And I learned so much so quickly about, working in this field, about visual effects themselves. I'm proud of myself that I fit in there very well. And I think a lot of interns kind of struggled there, like the fitting in part, but I fit in well. I got along with a lot of those people, and that was kind of how I got in there, or how I stayed there essentially, is that I asked to be there 2 days a week instead of one, and I just sort of fit in. And I was there for about 9 months because I wasn't semester based at that point. I could just be there. I could work 5 days a week at the restaurant and then spend 2 days there. And then it had been about a year. I said, okay, I gave it a shot. I've got to move on from this. And I was working at Red Robin. I was also doing pretty well there too. They're like, do you want to be a manager? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of reaching the end of my internship here. I tried, didn't work, so I may as well go into this and see how I do. And they said, okay, you're going to be a manager training. They sent me down to Northern Virginia to be part of this 10-week intensive manager training course. And about 3 weeks into that, I got an email from Brickyard being like, hey, so-and-so at the front desk is leaving. What do you say? And I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. And I had to check out of the hotel that night. I was like, I'm out. I'm sorry, I'm gone. And I actually, at the time, that was a pay cut to go back into that. And then I spent about 9 months working at the front desk there. And then once again, someone left. I was the next person up. And now I'm a production coordinator, and I am working directly with flame artists. I'm, coordinating between them and the clients, getting them everything they need, sitting in the room, watching them work. I know it now. I'm in. That's sort of that first entry-level job is once you have it, you've got it.
Yeah.
And no matter what, no matter where, if I had stopped at that point too, no matter where I would go, I'm now bona fide in this industry. Yeah. I could say I have that job.
Yeah, that entry level job is just the key to
getting that.
It's the hardest part, but it only has to work once, right? And then once you have it, you're good.
Are you still at Brickyard?
No, I was there for about 4 years. I left to work for about 1.5 years at this biotech PR agency. I kind of worked as this project manager there, which was funny because it's my first week there. They're like, so you do video, right? Well, I have experience producing visual effects for commercials. They're like, whatever, yeah, cool. Can you go interview this guy? Can you go take this camera and do that? I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll be the video guy.
Yeah.
And then an artist that I worked with at Brickyard moved to this other company called Zero, which is the second studio in Boston. And then he let me know that they were going to have an opening for a producer. And I said, okay, I'm in. And my start date was mid-March 2020. Not a great time to be giving up your job and giving them notice. And I actually had quit. And then the CDC was like, hey, guys, this is a thing. Yeah. So Zero had to hey, we're not sure if we can start you right now. And I'm like, well, I've come at a bad time. But I'm very thankful they brought me in. They were able to just, a couple of weeks, and then I was their first remote hire.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And that's when you can't, I remember your Brickyard stuff because you reached out. They did Bank of America stuff.
Bank of America, Dunkin' Donuts, all those progressive spots with Flow.
Yeah, and then but with Zero, you were late. That's when you talked to our class.
That's when I came in, yeah.
And that was the Creed stuff.
Yeah, so Zero does about half feature work and then half commercials, and I work on commercials, and I enjoy that half a lot more. I love working on commercials.
Yeah, you said that.
I think the feature side of it, like, it's cool. It's like, they're big movies and you get your name in the credits, but like they're a marathon versus like what the sprint a commercial can be, because it's like, commercial, you got 2 weeks, you got to bang it out, and then it's just on to the next one so quickly. And with film, it's like you've got this one big project for like 3 to 4 months, and then you're constant like searching for the next one.
Yeah.
But commercials just happen so much quicker, and I love it.
I remember you showed us the Baker Mayfield spot, and you showed us the Creed 2 spot, and the VFX that went into that. It was pretty cool.
I remember feeling so excited to show like the before and after on the Baker Mayfield stuff, because it's like it's so much work that goes, like, what an art director at an ad agency will ask for. Like, it just wouldn't occur to you sometimes of like, this needs to be cleaned up, we got to do this, or we've got to change this take here. We do so much split screen compositing to get everyone's take aligned, and then showing the kids before and after, like, look at this, look at this. They were just like, I don't. And looking back, of course, it's not the most exciting thing to like even share, but like that's so much of what we do. Visual effects isn't just like Avengers or like CG characters. It's anything that you couldn't naturally capture in camera and have to take care of afterwards.
Yeah.
Like if you need to shoot a scene that you wanted to be in the fall, but your A-list talent is only available in the winter, that's visual effects. You got to get rid of all that snow, and that makes that possible.
We might need that for one of our movies this
right.
year.
If you are doing a concert, like, it's not practical to fill that stadium full of extras, but you need to fill them. So we have characters that we can populate a stadium with, and that's what visual effects are.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it's fantastic though, and you're still with them now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's great.
So, were you looking to get into producing, or is that just kind of how your career kind of passed it?
I got into producing because, number one, when I was at Brickyard interning, the youngest artist at that time I saw was about like late 20s, early 30s. And I was just like really, not discouraged, but like, Jesus, that's going to take a long time to get even to that level. And so I saw more opportunity in the production office there. And then the other part of that is that producing just kind of came more naturally to me. I had working with clients and whatnot, honestly, because of my work in restaurants, that like I just have a better communication, I guess. Mm-hmm. Another bit of advice I would have for people who want to get into any sort of video or film industry is just like, get a job doing anything. A bonus if it's with clients or customers. I think a lot of people like are so focused on just like student films and getting that sort of experience, but like having experience of just having a job and knowing how to comport yourself when you're doing it for money is just so important. Mm. That like a lot of people will just have their internship as like their first time, not in a classroom or just like at home, that they don't know quite how to behave. So just a lot of people say like, oh, clear the irrelevant experience off your resume, but like every bit of work that you've had is relevant.
It's good advice.
It's great advice, yeah. That was going to be my question, was what advice, but I guess I'll go to a different question, just real quick. We, and Nick too, you're in this age bracket where it's like, we learned everything on Final Cut, and then that switched to Adobe like immediately.
Yeah.
That sucked. I just want to throw that out there, that you're part of that transition too. But yeah, my advice, or my question for you is going to be, what advice do you have for kids? I think you just nailed that one. Getting work experience, like talking to people. Like, yeah, kids afraid to call and order a pizza because it's like, what do I say? It's like, well, you say what kind of pizza you want. I don't know. Like, it's very, that's very good advice, especially for the kids. I feel like now who have kind of grown up with everything like that's digital and like online, or like they can do everything without face-to-face. I do think that's great advice.
There's so much of this business that just comes down to like, I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
Or I don't like, or the converse obviously is more positive. Just like, I love working with this person, and that's like how I do well at my job. Like, at least I would hope that like I just try to make it very easy for any clients that I have, of just like taking any sort of anxiety they might have about the project and just be like, it's going to be fun, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And just talking to them through like what we're doing, because it's what we do is can be such like a black box to clients. So it's just like they just send us the footage and then we're kind of like working on it for a couple of weeks and then they get it back and they just don't like understand a lot of like what I do is like explain when I send them an estimate, like what goes into that. Like I had done a job recently, another progressive spot, where they did backup quarterbacks as like a, hey, you can tap in this quarterback to do whatever. And there was a spot where this guy has to spray a wasp's nest. And our role in that was to put in the wasp swarm, because like you can't have like stunt bees on set, nor can you have like a bunch of angry wasps around like a NFL talent. And we also had to do the spray come out of the can, because again, it's like harsh chemicals. You can't just be breathing that stuff in. So I had to send him an estimate to sim a bee swarm. And we got all sorts of questions. I'm like, okay, it's going to be about 3 shots, and I send them a cost. And they go, okay, well, what about if we did 6 shots? And, let me look at that. And I send them an updated estimate that's like a little bit more, like it's not that significant. And like, well, what if we wanted to double the amount of bees? Okay, not bad, a little bit, about 10% more. And they're like, okay, what if we had a shot of 1 bee walking across the nest? And I'm like, well, you just blew up your budget there, pal. I'm like, what do you mean? How come that was different? I'm like, it's so different. It's not that easy just to do that, man.
Yeah. Right.
So it's telling them, trying to explain constantly, like the minutia of what we do and like why this is complicated or why that's so easy.
Let me just, we're recording this, what is this, the 21st of February, 2025?
21st February, 2025.
Yeah. It just popped in my head here, and you'd be the first person we asked this, but like, how has AI affected the business on your end? Or are you seeing any impact? Because you just mentioned that story, and I'm thinking, like, in my head, because I'm very aware of what video AI can do now, and I know it's emerging, but like, it seems on the horizon where that type of stuff, like a bee walking across the nest, you're capable of doing that in some of these more robust AI platforms.
So, I struggle to be that guy who doesn't end up on a breadline in 5 years who said, like, the internet's just a fad type of thing. There's a lot of stuff that's going to get you, like, 80% of the way, but where we work, we have to get to 100 every time. And so, like, that type of gen AI bit that you're describing is just, like, it's difficult because it's, like, I know that it's so hard to art direct that material. It's kind of like just whatever returns you get. So I don't necessarily see that. I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be like diminishing returns on that, or if it's going to be like, because like what are the issues with that? It's like there's no continuity. There's no layers. It's hard to say like, okay, let's take this, but just make this tiny little tweak, and then you get it back and it's something completely different. I don't know. I know stock video is in trouble, but it's not really what I work with. But we're working with AI in the sense that we've been working with AI when they just refer to it as machine learning. And that's just another tool that we're doing, and we're doing new work that didn't really exist before, or it did, but like it was laborious, there was certain limits to it. But like where I think about AI and how we use it now a lot is on face replacements that will just feed this, I don't know what you call it, an algorithm or something, all this footage of a character, and then we'll say, okay, now that you've learned all this, put it on this person's head. And then that works, and then there's a lot of work to do, like compositing cleanup on that. So there's many parts of AI where it's very helpful, and then there are other parts where I feel like people have like this grand vision of like what it could be, of like, oh, you just type in a prompt and you'll get a movie back. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not there yet.
Right.
But so for me, because I'm looking at this all the time in terms of like how it affects us and stuff. What scares me, and I get 100% what you're saying, like, AI is going to get you maybe in the door, but like to get a finished product, it's a lot of work, and to tweak it and to get it to what you said, 100%. But what scares me is that watching what these kids ingest on social media, etc., for commercials and whatever, it doesn't matter. It's almost like
they won't care.
They don't care. It's like the kids. and I know I'm like old man.
Old man yelling at a cloud.
Here it is. Here it is. But like, it's like when I grew up, you wanted the best sounding music. You had it on CD, and it was like crystal clear. And there's a certain point now where kids don't care what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like crap, but they don't care. And they listen to it anyway on YouTube or whatever, on these tiny little speakers. And I have a feeling that video is moving in a similar way, where the stuff that you see on social media is like, yeah, that's good, but it's like could be so much better if you tweaked it and got into the, After Effects and did this. But the kid, they don't care.
If the standards drop, I'm toast, for sure. but like if you think about like all the marketing around a movie where they're like, see all this, man, we didn't use any visual effects, which is a lie.
Yeah.
But I just don't think, if there's already like that sentiment of like, look at this, no green screens, practical sets, like I don't see how people are going to go from that thinking like that's cool to this was all AI. Like they're going to probably reject that even further.
Yeah, it's just that you're seeing this already influence the business with Adrian Brody and The Brutalist, for example. Like you're seeing it, the tide of AI starting to make people's jobs a little easier in what would have taken days or hours. Like it takes minutes.
But that's not. It's just AI is too big of a catch-all.
Sure.
I think that was a completely appropriate use because you're already in there tinkering with the sound mix.
Yeah.
So it's just one step further that just like it's. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. I just wanted to get your perspective because you're on the front lines there, and we're just kind of marveling at what it can do. And like, I mean, this stuff coming out is not out yet, but like now you can get these characters, animated characters, and you can basically have them do whatever you want them to do. And I'm thinking like last year's movie with Charlie's movie, all old school, the irony of that movie being done old school Disney style, and then we're probably a year away from plugging in a screenplay and saying, can you do this and make it a mouse? And it's like, done, or maybe 2 years away. So it's just, to me, it's just kind of scary. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
I guess it takes kind of some of the personality out of it. But like I like what you said, though. It's like we're embracing that, this stuff is coming. It's helping us do stuff quicker, but it's still kind of like a rudderless ship if you don't have the human, like, here's what the client wants, here's what we need, here's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, like you still have to know what makes an acceptable final product.
Yeah, I like what you said. Like, if the standards dropped, then we're screwed. But like the standards can't drop.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's the people in charge still know what's good and what's not.
Right.
And it's like that's okay, but it's not to this standard. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to get your perspective on it because
I know, because I mean, like, the dawn of CG probably went through the same thing of folks. What was it, like Tron wasn't nominated for like best visual effects, and it was like the most insane thing because they said, "Oh, you're cheating because you're using a computer." Something is gonna happen, but I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be like this seamless text to output. That's just like, this is it. This is our new entertainment model now.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars, and Lucas. I mean, they're the guys that invented all that stuff.
Right.
Pixar, for the movies. And yeah, you're right. There's that certain element. I mean, I remember Jurassic Park coming out, the first one, being like, "Holy, this is unbelievable," and it's all computer, and just kind of wrapping my mind around it. All right. Well, we got off on a tangent there, but let's go back.
Do you have any advice about budgeting? Maybe because I don't think people know much about that. So like maybe things that people don't think about, or like things that are more expensive than people realize.
I can only speak to any sort of like post-production bit. Again, just for visual effects, how things get budgeted is oftentimes they just get a script and they just have to read the script and imagine what might be visual effects, what might not be. So again, like if you're in a script and you see a crowd scene, well, okay, I'm going to have to think about this. And there are certain benchmarks you have about like, if this script is X number of pages, that will probably result in X number of shots. So I guess something like a crowd scene, you first have to budget the asset, which is the crowd itself. Then on a shot-by-shot basis, you have to budget like the tracking and the lighting, the compositing, further tweaks to that crowd group that you have, and then it's like multiplied times X number of shots. Oftentimes, so that's on features. They start with the script and kind of just hope that what you've got is going to be enough to cover you, because I think that sentiment of like, fix it in post, why that kind of rankles folks is because like the budget's already kind of locked at this point. So when you're adding new stuff, it can be really hard to get an overage approved. For commercials, much in the same way, I'll get a script, I'll read through that, I'll try to flag anything that like, probably is going to be a conversation. Or then oftentimes even easier, they've already shot something, they can't quite figure it out, and they'll send us the actual plates to work at, to look at. We'll poke around and get an estimate based on that. But I think the point is that we try to be very flexible. We can't just say like, well, it's this many hours times this rate, and then that's your budget, take it or leave it. Like, we try to be very flexible. Like, what's your budget? What can we do? Like, there's a lot of negotiation of like, well, if you don't have a budget for this, let's try to come up with a solution that maybe isn't like exactly what you want, but like we'll still sell it, and then we'll come in at a cost that it works for you.
I was going to say, and like going back on something else you said, where it's like you're managing that relationship. You're
Right.
like, we're doing Progressive's ad, so it's
Right.
like you're not going to like shoot your shot with just for one, because you know that they're changing these up every few weeks. So that's definitely like that interpersonal skills is something that it's like, even for something, if a lot of your work is done on a computer, it's still an important skill that you need.
There's something I've read too that like you can shear a sheep all you want, but you can skin it only once.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like that.
That's a good one. So, all right, let's bring it back to the film festival here. So we always ask everybody to share their 3 favorite or influential film festival movies they had nothing to do with, and then your 3 favorite influential recommended Hollywood movies for students to watch.
First and very most foremost, my favorite film festival movie that I had no part in, very specifically the first half of The Legend of Sleepy Hallway. I think that is the most like crisp and tight, like so professionally made movie that I had seen. It was just flawless. Everything flowed so nicely. Like the talent was great. The editing was perfect. Like it was just so great. It kind of fell apart after the dance scene, and I'm sorry to mention that too, but like that first half is just so good.
That opening
I can't stop gushing over it. I don't know why this is my answer, because I can't actually remember anything about it, but I remember really liking On the Verge of Eating Ham.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, On the Verge of Eating Ham.
I'm hoping you can tell me why I liked it.
Just
So
out there. It was great.
that's Kevin Smith. So that's his second movie. First was Fading Reality, which was an independent, and the second movie was an independent too. It's just, that's a kid with just a vision, just different, crazy vision. Somehow, I mean, first off, the premise of that movie is still one of the best premises around.
Yeah.
Kid gets sick of his imaginary friend and wants to kill him.
Yeah,
that is a great
fantastic.
premise.
Awesome premise.
What a premise, right? And I remember him pitching that and being like, yeah, go. And the result is just absolutely bonkers. And it has like that weird montage. Yeah, it's just, that's probably why
that's
you liked
available
it.
on YouTube. I'm probably going to watch it
Oh,
this
yeah.
afternoon.
Oh, it
All
is.
Great. All right.
Yeah, because that was freshman year, and I just remember that was kind of my first. I was going to see my brother's movie, and just Mr. Giblin, who I had never had, just was like, "Hey, you're a Conley, right? Yeah, come with me. And I was like, "What am I doing?" He's like, "Just start shouting ham is murder when this crew comes."
That's right. So
join the protest.
We decided. I grabbed Mr. Giblin, and I'm like, he's a known vegetarian, and for the red carpet, just to screw with Kevin Smith, I was like, "You're gonna protest On the Verge of Eating Ham because it's promoting eating meat." And so he did. So he dressed up as like a hippie, and they all had and Smith.
Signs, yeah.
That whole crew had no idea what they were walking into. It was hysterical.
It's another guy I owe my like another steak dinner. Well, non-steak dinner, I guess. Then the AP Euro right there saved me so much money.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a third.
Our sponsors today: AP Chemistry and AP Euro.
I like the code. I like
Oh
it.
wow!
Let's go.
And I think
It's come full circle.
I think it's very clear that was a group of friends who had a lot of fun making it, and I think that should still be the point at this stage.
Absolutely.
It really comes across on screen, I think. You can tell when they had fun making it.
Yeah, that movie was a lot of fun. I feel like we talk about it every third podcast, I would say. That's one that, like you said, well, we're here during February break. You walked in, there's no kids, right?
Yeah.
Like for us, February break, we were here until like 9 at night. We were here at night. Like, it's a little different now, but, it is about just kind of getting together with a group of friends and making movies, not excuses.
You got that sense too from Karma as well, just that you guys are having a blast, which is great. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And now the 3 Hollywood films.
I think I'll just say as a recommendation that if you're going to get any sort of streaming service, get yourself the Criterion Collection. They just have like these monthly sort of like mini film festivals that put in collections for you. It's just fantastic to number one see like old classics, just like smaller movies made in the 80s and 90s that you probably never heard about are just fantastic. Like I saw Thief with James Caan for the first time. Oh my God, I freaking loved it.
It's Michael Mann's best movie.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I had never heard of it too. So again, I'm not. I don't know why I just stumped them. I'm not getting paid by them, but I think just if you want to do that, I would recommend getting that. So 3 specifically, I think one of my film professors told me that like Back to the Future was like the most perfect movie of like story beats. Like probably if you pulled out that script and like on this page you're gonna have this event. So I think just as a blueprint for how to make just a solid Hollywood hit, Back to the Future is definitely it. I also really like Hot Fuzz. Oh, yeah. I think Hot Fuzz is just like the tightness of that script and editing, like everything said, everything presented, folds in on itself 2 or 3 times over. Like it's so rewarding to watch like over and over again to catch up on the little things that are hints about the ending that you didn't catch the first time. And then number 3 has a bit of a recency bias because I just watched it within the past week. But Eternal Sunshine on the Spotless Mind is so good. It's just a fantastic film, but like it's also just really good at a movie that probably existed because someone just had a fun what if thought and then just turned that into a movie. Like someone probably went through a really bad breakup and thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just erase this person from my mind? And then from there wrote a whole script about doing that, but also like the implications of that. Like what would that business look like? What are all the little pitfalls of that? And then that's a movie.
Yeah, Charlie Kaufman, right?
Charlie Kaufman's script, yeah. I just recently rewatched that as well. It's great. That and Adaptation, like and being John Malkovich. That trilogy, even though it's not a trilogy, is like if you just want to watch some great movies, some original. Like nothing else. Yeah, and it reminds me of like Severance now. Like it's someone had an idea of just like I wish I could just separate my work life from my home life. Right. And then that's a screenplay because everyone's thinking about what are the implications. Like what's one step further from that? That's the show. Yep, that's good advice for just coming up with ideas. Absolutely.
We watched Malkovich in class. That was the one movie you showed us. I remember.
It was Malkovich?
Yeah.
We watched Adaptation.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was Adaptation.
Yeah, I don't think we watched Malkovich. I might have shown Malkovich in like creative writing, but Adaptation. I used to watch that every year, and then it was pretty much replaced by Social Network,
which is also my favorite trailer for a movie was a Social Network.
Yes. Oh, that's really good.
I love that one.
Yeah, that's a great behind the scenes. We watched the behind the scenes, so we really dissect Social Network.
The one with Creep, right?
Oh yeah.
That trailer is epic.
It's funny you mentioned the movies that we would watch in class. Is like when I was the junior there for those few weeks after the seniors had graduated. Yeah. That essentially just turned into Mr. Allen babysitting me for an hour and like.
It was just me and you.
What movie can I put on for this kid to entertain him for the next 45 minutes? I think I watched like Amadeus, which stretched out over like 3 or 4 classes.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, we watched Amadeus.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of trailers. We didn't mention one of your biggest accomplishments was making a good trailer out of a sophomore sale.
Yes, that's right.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah, a little pinch hitting there.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I would give some of my seniors just some of the sophomore stuff and be like, "See what you can do with this."
Yeah, fun.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend the movie, but you can watch the trailer. It's really good.
Yeah, he did a good job with that.
Yeah.
He was my like Max Buzinoff.
Yeah, the Buzinoff, yeah.
That's such a compliment. I looked up to him so much.
Yeah, he was like, where is he now? Like, that's what I want to know. Max, if you're listening, please call.
Yeah, he was singing for a while. Yeah, he was the guy that I would give things to edit, and then it was Jack.
Yeah.
And it was R.T. Hardiman for a while. I need someone like that. Like, take this.
The utility player.
Yeah.
Now it's these two right here.
If we're wrapping up, I'm just going to leave you with two thoughts.
Yeah.
Number one, what year is this for Film Festival?
23.
23. Conceptually, in theory, I don't know if this has happened already, but you're going to have a film festival Nepo baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's happened yet, but it's probably coming.
So you mean an actual?
So I mean, someone graduated,
Yeah.
did the film festival,
Yeah.
has a kid. That kid is now grown up to be
Yeah.
15, 16, and is now in film festival class.
So there's
kids here that
there's
are
kids here that I've had. Their
not necessarily.
their mother, but she wasn't in the film festival. It was the year before. Nobody yet, right?
It's coming soon. There's kids that their sibling, it was 2-3 years older than us,
Yeah.
and it's they're kids at the school, but they're not in film, so it's it's coming.
Well, that's honestly what's kept us going is just the siblings or the cousins of.
Raspberry Crew just graduated a couple years ago.
So you mentioned
Hallway,
Sleepy Hallway, yeah. So their cousin CJ DeVito and his sister, they were wonderful directors and did awesome work, and it all came from the O'Neills. So we're still seeing that.
Yeah.
I mean, April.
Yep.
Right now, and.
It's actually kind of what got us through COVID was families that they had older siblings pre-COVID, and then the younger siblings were post-COVID.
And Gallivan, cousin.
Gallivan,
And
Mikey St. Martin. I don't know if that counts. But.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mikey St. Martin through his father and brother.
Yeah.
Mikey was in the movie too.
When he was young, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what's kept us going. It's right, because, it's tough. It's tough. You'd be surprised with all the AP classes, and the kids can't get into the class, and then after school, it's not the same.
Yeah. But Jack, thank you for coming in.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. Yeah, it was great to be back.
I'm sure it was a little weird walking through the doors, but
very much so.
Happy to have you. And again, I thought you gave some great advice to the students. Again, kids that are in high school now that are listening, kids that are in college now that are listening, or kids that just graduated college, or kids that are out in the world trying to get into this field. I think Jack has some great advice for you, as do a lot of our alumni interviews. So thank you guys for listening. And until next time, Jack, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
You've been listening to Walpole High Film Festival's podcast, 1 Point Perspective.